Dave Palumbo here with an RX Muscle news update. The 2021 IFBB Toronto Super Show Men's Open is let out. Joel Thomas is our winner in a very controversial and close decision here. You know, I don't think a lot of people expected that much out of the Toronto Pro lineup because it's the end of the year. We're into December already here. And, you know, a lot of people are just sick of dieting, right? And people are trying to get ready for the Arnold Classic. So I don't think we expected to see much here, but I was, pleasantly surprised with the lineup. Now, you have to say to yourself, did Joel Thomas do enough to win here today? And that's the question, I guess, on everyone's mind. And, I like Joel's physique. I've seen him come up through the amateur ranks. He always had a lot of muscle thickness to him. His legs were always one of his best body parts. He has great pecs and huge shoulders and delts and arms, I should say. And he has one of those powerful looking physiques, but with good structure. And I think that's really what probably wowed the judges here. He's got a lot of width on him. He's not the tallest guy in the lineup, never really is. My problem with him winning the show is that, number one, I thought he could have been a little leaner in the glute and hamstring area and lower back. That's number one. I don't know if it was a little flatness. To me, it looked like he could have been a little tighter. But second place, Quentin Aria, I think was phenomenal here. We're going to talk about him in a minute. Now, Joel Thomas is really got a special physique, and I think that, I'm not trying to take anything away from what he accomplished here today, because he is really, really, really good. And to do that, I'd be doing service to him. But I have to tell you that, I really, really do like Quentin Aria's physique. And I'm going to tell you why. Because at the end of the day, bodybuilding is about muscle. It is about conditioning. It is about presentation. But it's also about how everything flows together. And I hate when people make comparisons, about, bodybuilders who are like Ronnie Coleman, because Ronnie Coleman is the greatest of all time, So sometimes that bothers me when I see that. And I understand why people don't like, those comparisons being made, because, at the end of the day, Ronnie was the greatest of all time, and I don't want to discredit what Ronnie has accomplished, but Quentin Aria has got some wow to him and his physique, man, that I just think that he's going to be a future star in this division. He's got, first of all, some of the best conditioning on stage. Probably him in third place, Joe Seaman, with the best condition. But he's got wow, the way his body flows, that small waist, those broad shoulders, the crazy leg separation he's got. He's got really good presentation, which probably comes from his classic physique, background that he came from. He obviously has added a lot of size over the last year and a half. Can he still add more size? Yeah, of course he could. And he probably could be even a little harder. He's a lot of what we're seeing up here, the wow is just his genetic separation he's got in his muscle. He's not that grainy, but he's impressive. And I think the judges said, you know what? The guy is impressive, but maybe Joel Thomas has a little bit more mature muscle mass. And that sometimes, unfortunately, sometimes that's what judges prefer. They prefer, and I never understood this when I was competing, and then people would say, oh, you need more muscle separation. And I'm thinking, I'm the hardest guy on the stage. But as I progressed in my career and I improved my physique and I kept training longer and longer, I got more grooves and roundness and 3D look to my muscles that I didn't have before. I had the size and I had the conditioning, but I didn't have the separation in the muscle. And that comes with training. And I think Quentin's going to get that too. Joel has that a little bit more, but I didn't think, if Joel's conditioning would have been spot on, I think I would have said, give him the win. But I think he left the door open enough that you can say Quentin Aria did enough here to win this show. And from the people, I don't think I've talked to anyone who's thought that Quentin didn't deserve to win the show. And that, once again, it sucks when you get ready for a show, you show up at pretty much close to your best. You have all the bells and whistles. The fans and the people who are critiquing the shows think you should have won, and the judges don't. And the judges are the only ones that are important, really, at the end of the day, because they're sitting in that front row and they're seeing something that we're not necessarily. It doesn't mean that mistakes are not made or that bad decisions are not made, but it just means that that's what they preferred on this day. And you know what? Quentin Aria has got a tremendous career, and so does Joel Thomas if he keeps improving. So we're going to see Quentin compete. I'd like to see him do the New York Pro a little later this year. You know, take some time, try to put on 5 or 7 pounds of muscle. He's got bells and whistles galore. I mean, on his physique, he just needs more muscle mass. If he puts on 5, 7, even 10 pounds of muscle, because he's growing like a weed these last couple of years, and he steps on that New York Pro stage or even Tampa, you know, with extra muscle, with the better or the same conditioning, he's going to blow through some of these lineups, and he's going to beat some really good guys because he's got a lot of talent. Let me tell you, you can just see it. He's got, you know, I've seen it when he was in Classic, and I said, you know what, this guy, if he ever puts it all together, is going to be one hell of a person that no one's going to want to mess with. And you know, he proved that was the case. You know, and I'm glad he did, because at the end of the day, you know, some guys would have been happy just settling with staying in the classic physique division, and he deserves more than that. He's that good. One of the people who surprised me the most is Joe Seaman, and I don't know why. Every time I see him, I'm always surprised by him, but he's got so much muscle, this guy, and he's added more. He's got tremendous legs. The comparisons have been made to Jay Cutler because he's a little wide at the waist, but he's super wide in the delts. So he's got a V-taper. He's got those big monster quads. He's got the big freaky glutes and hamstrings. He really doesn't have any weaknesses other than the fact that I think his back can be not wider. It's pretty damn wide already. He needs more density and thickness and 3D muscle in that back. And that's going to just come from training, you know, and time. But I think this is definitely the best I've ever seen him. And he probably was the hardest guy on the stage. And he's definitely got the most muscle of anyone on the stage. So from a sheer, you know, bodybuilding freak muscle conditioning standpoint, and he flows, you can give him the victory here, and no one complains probably. You know, and I'm sure if he was more well-known and more established, he might have won the show here. I prefer Quentin's beautiful lines, you know, to his mass, even though I had more of a body like his, you know, when I was competing. He's better than I was. But I'm just saying, from a freak standpoint, I like the freak bodybuilders, but I do like Quentin because I think that he could be a crossover guy where he's got the structure and the freakiness. He's not there yet, of course, but I think he will at some point. There we're seeing Joel Thomas a little bit again perform. But Joel's a big guy, you know, and that's why Joel won this show. And that's at the end of the day, you know, sometimes that's all it takes. You know, Joel is bigger than Quentin. I just think that Quentin flows a little better. Let's just I want to mention Stan LeLong, who finished in 5th place here, because he has a very good story. You know, this is a guy who went from the men's physique division to the classic physique division, made it to the Olympia, then switched to the open division because he just wasn't happy. He wanted more muscle. He was living with Sean Roden. A lot of us know, I think most of you guys know that probably by now. He was his training partner for years throughout the Olympia victory tour that Sean had. And I have to imagine that the loss of Sean Roden during this prep had played a huge emotional impact on him, and had to complete. I'm shocked he's on stage, to be honest with you. I take my hat off to him, because you know what? He's made a tremendous amount of improvements since we last saw him, for sure. But this is not the stand that I know he could be. I know he's better than this. He knows he's better than this. I'm shocked he's made it to this. I think he did this just to say, hey, Sean, man, I know you're watching over me out. This show's for you. But when I get on stage next year, I'm going to be a different bodybuilder, because I know he's going to be. I know he can be better than this. His conditioning wasn't you know, that great from behind. He was a little flat. We're going to see a much better Stan DeLongo, but I'm so happy he was able to place in the top 5 and finish 5th here. And I take my hat off to him for even making it to the stage after, you know, what unfortunately, you know, he was subjected to and what he had to go through, you know, with the death of Sean Roden. I mean, it was just horrible. It's a horrible thing to have to go through when you see your friend die, you know, and then have to try to pick up the pieces, you know, Monday morning and go back to the gym and continue dieting. I mean, how do you do that? I mean, it's very tough. Let's take a look at this lineup. together, because obviously looking at people individually doesn't really, do it justice. I think when you look in the middle at, well, let's get rid of this ad first. When you look in the middle at these two guys and you see Quentin Aria in the green trunks, Joel Thomas in the purple trunks, all the way over on the right, you can see Joe Seaman. You can see how good he is and how big he is. But Joel Thomas with the small waist, Quentin Aria, small waist. I mean, these guys structurally, that's who these judges were going for. Structure. Joel a little thicker, a little denser, shorter. Quentin a little more, opened up, taller, bigger structure. I think more wow. I think conditioning is better with Quentin. Joel Thomas's tan could have been a little darker, but his glutes and hamstrings were not crazy striated. If they were, I probably would have been okay with this decision. But I don't know if Joel's a little flat, or if his back looks a little flat to me, or if his glutes and hams are just not tight enough. But to me, Quentin Aria does enough to win here. But at the end of the day, like I said, it doesn't really matter, because you know why? Both of these guys, I think, came out of this show with a lot of respect from the fans and the judges. And we're going to see, I think, look, Joel's got to add some more muscle to his body, and he's got to come in with better conditioning and better polish. No doubt about it. And if he does that, he's going to be able to win more pro shows. This was not the best Joel Thomas we've seen. This was probably close to the best Quentin Aria we've seen. And I think that's why I would have rewarded him. But he does need more size too. He's got a big frame. He's got to fill that out if he wants to be a legitimate open competitor. But he's got every bell and whistle that you could possibly want as a bodybuilder. If I'm looking at his physique and I'm saying to myself, what kind of a bodybuilder do I want to look like when I'm that's the kind of physique you want, right? I mean, that's a beautiful physique. That's an athletic physique. That's something that, you walk through an airport and people are like, holy mackerel, look at that guy. I used to tell Tony Freeman that all the time. I said, Tony, man, if I had to pick one bodybuilder to look with, I wouldn't even pick Dorian or Ronnie. I would pick you, man. You walk through the airport, you look like you're Muhammad Ali. You're bigger than life figure. He certainly was the X-Man, and I think that Quentin Aria will have that kind of a structure too. When he fills himself out and it's all said and done. So at the end of the day, I thought it was a good Toronto Super Show. I'm glad they held it. I know they had to push it all the way to the end of the year here, and sometimes you don't get the best lineups when that happened. And this was a good lineup. It wasn't the best lineup, of course, but at the end of the day, it turned out that we had some good competition here, and I'm very impressed with. I think the surprise of the show, Joe Seaman for sure, and great job, Joe, and congratulations to Joel Thomas on the win and the Olympia qualification. For now, I am Dave Palumbo with another RX Muscle News Update.